We were promised a 100% increase in productivity using GenAI, but one of the issues is that the employees that we are trying to get to use AI is as mature as this gentleman on the screen right here. And when they are as mature as this gentleman, we have a problem. And we have perspectives on how to solve this problem. That is, how do we train the employees in the organizations to actually learn how to use AI? Okay, so it starts with understanding who is the actually target group. A perspective that I have is, why are we teaching adults the way that we teach kids? Very big difference in the way that you are taught when you're a child, the way that you learn when you're a child, and the way that you should be taught, and the way that you learn when you're an adult. So when you're a kid, it's biologically wired that you have to learn new things, right? You want to learn how to walk, you want to learn how to eat, you want to learn how to, if you fall, you hit yourself, you want to learn from those mistakes and not do them again. But as you grow older, the biological need to learn new stuff is actually not that big anymore. So you don't have to learn new stuff. When you get a new job, yes, you have to learn in the beginning, but over time, you don't have to learn new stuff because you know the systems, you know the colleagues, you know your way around the offices, you know the customers. You don't have to learn new stuff. When the organizations, when the consultants, that's me, we go out into the organizations, it's difficult to teach adults new stuff, and it's difficult for the adults to learn new stuff because we don't have to, right? And therefore, we have this, the old way of doing things tend to be the way that we continue to do things. And I can say this with confidence because I've been the consultants providing the training for many years. And I've also been the employee receiving the training. And I've been the employee for many years. So I've been a consultant for 5 years. I've been an employee for more than 6 years. And now I'm a consultant again, trying to help the organizations teach their employees how to use AI so they can reap the benefits of that. But in both cases, on the consultant side and on the employee side, I've experienced not applying new learnings. And I thought to myself, why is that? So I looked at this video from Sir Ken Robinson, and he's talking about how to escape education's death valley. He has this analogy that you can have a training going on, but training doesn't mean learning, right? So I can be walking out into the field right now, kicking a ball, but that doesn't mean that I'll score a goal. It doesn't even mean that I'll learn how to kick the ball properly. And that led me to think, so if you can have training or education going on, but that doesn't necessarily correlate with learning, then we need to understand, how do we train people so that learning is a byproduct of that training. And that led me down some different paths. And one of them was, I read this study by Hammond International, the organization who have done a whole brain similar to this profile. And there was this story here. So they're talking about, if you are recovering from a triple bypass operation, so you have heart surgery, and the doctor is telling you, you need to do something different, because if you don't do it, you potentially will die because you have a heart failure. Only 10% of the people who have been in the surgery, they actually changed their lifestyle afterwards. They eat differently, they begin to exercise more, they get better sleep, whatever it needs to do to take care of their heart, they do it. And the consequence of not doing that is potentially death. And still, it's only 10% who actually change their behavior. So if it's only 10% of people who change behavior, if the consequence is death, how many people will naturally incline to change behavior on job if the consequence is nothing, right? Because if you don't learn this, you'll probably be fine anyway. And that led me to the conclusion that we actually, for most employees, it's a free market. They don't have to change anything because there are no consequences. So we tell our employees to do X, Y, Z, because otherwise nothing. So they'll just continue to do A, B, C because they don't have to change. So my question is, how can we make training such as the employees actually want to learn and actually do learn? What we shouldn't do is continue to do what we do today. So today, most of the training that we provide to our employees is through passive learning, empathizing on theory. So, dear employee, if you do this in this specific situation with this specific customer, then you will get this result. But the reality is just that that's not how it works. So we'll set up these role plays, scenario planning in trainings for commercial people or for leaders. But reality is just that that's not how it works in the real world. Then a lot of the training is very generic and not relatable for the individuals in the room. So imagine that you were to train 10 people in using a generative AI, but you don't take into consideration what is the maturity level of these individual people. So maybe you have 25-year-olds in the room who's been trying and practicing and using Gen AI on their phone, on their computer, in their private time. And then you also have 55-year-olds in the same training. How are you going to train these individuals in the same way with the same content? It's some will be left before you even start, and others will think it's too basic. Maybe the ones in the middle will learn something, but if they don't really want to learn, if they're just there because their boss told them to, they will not learn anything either. Yes, the training will be conducted. Yes, you can tick off that you trained your employees, but the likelihood of anyone learning something is very low. And then what I typically see is that training is very result driven. So back to the analogy about me kicking the ball in the field out here, you can train the people on the behavior that you want to see, or you can train people on the results that you want to see. So let's take the football example again. I'm playing a football game with my friends this weekend. At halftime, we are trailing 1-2. And one of my friends tells me, Matthias, after the break, you just need to go out and score a goal. Well, that's the goal, to score the goal, but that's not how we get there. All right. We need to talk about the tactics. We need to talk about where do we position ourselves on the field. Am I playing a striker or the goalie? If I'm the goalie, then I'm probably not the one who has to score the goal. So we need to talk about the behavior that we want to see on the field, not the actual result that we want to get. And it's the same in training. We are talking about what is the result that we want. How many of us have been in a meeting with management and then they tell us, hey, we need to improve the numbers. Hey, we need to improve the KPIs. Hey, we need to make sure this doesn't happen anymore. But we don't talk about what it is that we actually want to see to improve the numbers. And we might need to start to do that now. So when we talk with the employees and ask them, so if you were to elaborate on where it is that you want to learn, then what is the answer that we get? So when we ask the employees, where is it that you want to learn? Well, only 10% of them say that it's informal training, right? So I want to learn when I'm sitting in a classroom with my coworkers, with my peers. I want a consultant or I want a leader or I want an internal training resource to train me on this topic because this is where I'm most comfortable. This is where I actually learn. 20% say it's when I'm interacting with coworkers. All right, I have a question. I go ask one of my colleagues, and then I learn that specific thing that I want to learn. But 70% say it's on the job experiences. That's where I learn. All right, the trial and error. So, the reflection is, should we hope that our employees, they learn on the job? We can do that. The thing about hope is that it's a pretty bad strategy because we cannot really help them. So it's random, right? It's random questions. It's random answers in random situations. Maybe we can control that a little bit more. So the employees, they want to learn on the job. If we take them into training sessions, 93% of them claim that they want training that is easy to complete. They want it to be personalized and they want it to be relevant for their position. They also want it to be fun and engaging. Okay. How many of us have been in training where it's super dull and an external consultant comes in and they pull up 80 slides and then they'll talk for 2 hours. It's a coffee break, talk for 2 hours, another lunch, 2 hours coffee break. And then we go home and then we have to deal with all our emails in the evening. 85% say they want to be able to choose training when it fits their schedule. And they also want to choose training times that fit to the same thing. All right. So if this is the situation that we find ourselves in, all right, the training is generic, it's result driven, it's theoretical. How can we improve the training such as we increase the likelihood of learning actually happening? Well, I believe it takes three things. So we need to look at the what first. So what behavior, right? We spoke about this before. What behavior do we actually want our employees to be able to perform after the training? Like what is it that very specifically, what is it that we want to see them do? Then we need to consider what is the format that we are training the employees in, all right? Is it engaging? Is it fun? Is it easy to complete? And then last but not least, of course, we need to think about what is the content that we put into the training. All right. It's very important that we are conscious about what is the actual content that we put into the training. And I think that one key reflection I have on this is that, especially as a consultant, we're external, so we are working for typically either C-level or boss. So we become ambitious on their behavior, and we are, as the consultants, mature in the content that we are delivering to the employees. But sometimes the employees see this content for the first time, which means that they are here and we are here. So the gap, we're not going to close this gap in the training. So maybe we need to dial it back a little bit so that there's a bigger likelihood of us closing the gap in the training. All right, let me elaborate a little bit on that. So first, I want to talk about the what. So in this wave of AI, I think the first question that we need to ask is, what is it that we want our employees to learn? So very specifically, we're talking about GenAI now. What do we want them to learn? Well, we want them to learn how to write meeting notes. Okay. Why do we want them to learn this? To ensure the knowledge is preserved. All right. So we have a Teams meeting. We want them to be able to use Copilot to transcribe the meeting. And after the meeting, tell Copilot, please write minutes of this meeting. All right. Then that's what we are training in this session. All right. Maybe we want them to reply quicker and with improved quality to customer inquiries. So we can get the employees to do this if they upload the customer's question into Copilot, and then they extract an answer from Copilot. We want to do that because we want to improve customer satisfaction. So the what we want them to learn and why we want them to learn that. That's the first step. The second step is the content part. And the reason why I bring up Super Mario, and so these are my two idols, it's Super Mario and it's Daniel Kahneman. And the reason why I bring these individuals up is because they have something in common. What Super Mario is good at is that he's good at learning new stuff. So if you play Super Mario for the first time and you hit one of these rooms, it's game over, but you don't quit, right? You learn that next time there's room walking down the map, you need to jump over this room, or you need to jump on top of this room to kill it, right? And then you'll learn that. And sometimes you get to a cliff, you fall in the cliff. Next time you jump over the cliff, right? The reason why we talk about Super Mario is because as adults, when we try something for the first time and we fail, the likelihood of us trying it again is very low. So we want to tell the employees in the training that you need to think the same way as Super Mario does, because Super Mario is really cool at learning new stuff. And then we talk about Daniel Kahneman's System 1 and System 2. And the reason why we talk about Daniel Kahneman's System 1 and System 2 is because we want the employees to understand that 95% of the time, maybe even 99% of the time, you are working on autopilot, right? So when you leave this room today after this training, you will either walk down to the street and get in your car, or you will walk down to the metro or the bike. But the thing that you do today is also the thing that you did yesterday, and it's also going to be the thing that you do tomorrow. When you get home, you will place your shoes the same place. If you have kids, you will tell your kids hello the same way. You'll probably eat one of 5 things for dinner. The same thing you had for dinner yesterday. This is one of the 5 dishes that you also have tomorrow. You go to bed at around the same time. So what I'm trying to get at here is that we are on autopilot most of the time. 95% of the time we are on autopilot. And it's very important to be conscious about that, because if you are on autopilot in a classroom training, you are not going to learn anything, because the likelihood of the likelihood that you were in a similar training prior. Okay, so if you've been in the company for 5 years, you've had multiple trainings throughout the years. It's always the same. It's not really relevant. It's result driven. They are taking away time from the actual work that you're supposed to do. So you're a bit stressed. I have decided on autopilot, I don't want to be here. I don't want to learn. So we need to bring the employees out of that headspace first. And then we want to tell them, you should now be in pilot mode. So you should be conscious about the decisions that we made. And yes, it is going to be hard to learn new stuff, but that is the whole point of this. So that is the content. Let me elaborate on the format now. So the reason why I have these gentlemen here on the statement is because how training is typically conducted that is over 1 or 2 days of a consultant that is very mature in the specific area, generative AI, how to use that to become more productive, trying to teach employees who are not that mature how to become mature in 1 or 2 days from a theoretical perspective, from the consultants talking a lot, and not that much actual training going on in the classroom. So this means that after the training, the employees probably haven't tried it that much. So what we want to do instead, we want to break this up instead of 1 or 2 days, we want to break it up over 1 2 month, one month, a month and a half. So it looks like this. In the beginning, you are not that strong. Then you begin to lift weights. You lift a little bit more weights. Then you get stronger. And then at the end of the month or a month and a half, you are quite strong in the terms of you have now learned the skill. So it looks like this. Let me elaborate on what this training looked like. So in this table, I've listed out the way that we conduct training and the way that we have conducted training for people in Gen AI, and we have seen 100% increase in the behavior that we want to see. So an example is I was working with an insurance company, and the employees, they were taught how to use AI in the sales process so that we are 100% sure that we understand what the customer's pain is before we move on into the solution. So here we have seen employees, we saw that very skilled employees, people above 150% in index, they did not improve much because I think my hypothesis that they already thought I am already very good. There's not much that I can learn. Therefore, I don't need to learn much. The individuals who were in the space of around 100%, so 100% performance, they are in index. Some of them, they improved 100%. So we have people who were on average in 95% index, 198% index a year after on average because they participate in this training. And then you have the lower group, people performing 50%, we improved their performance to 100%. So I have references and statistics to back this up. So the way that we do that is that we divide the training into a kickoff, 4 check-ins, and a competition. So let me elaborate on what that looks like. So first of all, the content. Well, we want to talk about, first of all, we want to talk about, remember, we're still talking about generative AI here, but we want to kick off the session with teaching the employees how to learn. All right. So we want to talk about Supermile. We want the employees to play Supermile. We want them to try out how does it feel to lose and what is the reflections that they have on losing. So, okay, I fell into the valley, or I fell, I hit this room, but I can just try again, right? So we want them to be conscious about that. Then we want to talk about system 1 and system 2, autopilot pilot. We want to talk about biases because a lot of the elements in the autopilot mode, that is what we call biases, right? So we have a bias that is path of least resistance. So we want for everything in the world to avoid something that is difficult. And then we want to talk about the use cases. All right. So we want them to be very conscious about, as I mentioned before, what is it that we want to learn? If we want our employees to learn how to write meeting minutes with Copilot, that is the only thing that we are talking about until they are good enough to do that without support. Some of these individuals, they don't even remember their password, right? They don't even know how to open Copilot. Of course, that is the first step. If they know how to do that, then we want to teach them how to write minutes in Copilot. So an important thing here is that I'm writing here demo by employees. So an important reflection that we need to be conscious about here is that there are probably people in the organization who are already good at that. Okay. So if we have identified, and we should have before we start the training, who in this organization is good at writing minutes in Copilot, then we want them to tell their colleagues how to do it so that it's not us, the consultants, or the people who are facilitating this training. And the reason why we want to do that is there's 2 reasons why we want to do that. So first, we want to do it because the individuals who are already good at it, they will learn more about how to do it by teaching their colleagues, and they also feel heard. That's one reason. The other reason is that these individuals are in the same room most of the time. So it's easier for the people who don't know how to do that to ask their colleagues on a daily basis, hey, Matthias, you mentioned this or that in the training a couple of weeks ago. Can you just help me with this? So the barrier now is much lower because they are in a trainer format without even realizing that. And then we want to practice during the training. So we don't conclude the training after the consultant has talked about how cool they are, all the cool use cases. We have plenty of time in the training for them to be able to practice this and get feedback. Then we conclude the training by talking about what went well and what was difficult. This takes between 3 and 4 hours, depending on the amount of people who are participating. I would recommend not more than 10 to 12 people in this training. It should be face to face, because if this is the first time you meet the individuals, or if this is the first time you are in this format, you should be there face to face. 3.5 hours, 10 to 12 employees participating. Then we have 4 check-ins, and let me just elaborate on one of them. So this is 1 hour. It's 1 hour. It's virtual. The same 10 to 12 employees. The format of this session is, what is the status? All right. How many of us have been in trainings where we, after the training, didn't apply the learnings? All right. So we want to bring them back into a room. So this is a virtual room. And then we want to ask them, how's it going? What have you learned? What went well? Who can share some example of what they've done? And then last but not least, we want to, we simply just want to bring them into the room with the consultant or with the training manager to just keep them up to date, to simply just keep them, help them continue to practice these things. The first couple of check-ins, we probably don't see much improvement. That's totally fine. If we by check-in 3, see that some of them are so good at the use case that we taught them, then we can begin to distribute new use cases on them. Hey, you are very good at writing minutes for meeting now. Now you can consider using Copilot for XYZ, right? So that could be, now you can use Copilot to translate, for instance. All right, you have a lot of customers writing to you in another language. You can use Copilot to translate. Or a customer that we work with, they have hundreds of pages of very sort of specific, it's like maintenance schedules. So they sell very complicated machines, and then they're writing maintenance schedules for these machines. And if you are handed this document from a coworker or from the customer, you can use Copilot to search in this document, and you can get what you're looking for instead of having to read the hundreds and hundreds of pages. That could be another use case. Then we have one final check-in. So here we are talking again about what is the status, what is going well, what can still be improved. And if we have identified any colleagues who are very good at performing this task, we ask them to share. All right, we still want to ask them to share. And then now we spend probably a month with these employees. We spend 3.5 to 4 hours, so 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. And then to conclude the training, we do a competition. This can be either face-to-face or virtual, but the reason why we want to do a competition is because we have to remember to have fun, but we also have to remember that if there is a competition, people are more inclined to lean in and participate. So we're basically just asking, we're summing up on the training, and then we're asking employees to solve the use case or the use cases that they've been trained in the fastest or with the highest quality. So yes, if it's only how to write minutes, we need to come up with a competition that is not just from one meeting. Then we simulate, this is your day, and then we condense it into 5 meetings, and then they have to have 5 meetings, and we put a little bit of stress on the employees, so they're having back-to-back meetings, and then they have to write minutes, and also they have to send those minutes to either the coworkers or the customers, and we put a little bit of stress on them, but we also make sure that they have fun, and then there's a prize. So it's not an exam, but that might be a little bit of prize. It could be a water bottle, it could be whatever. After this training, we conclude and we say thanks so much for participating. And then hopefully, and I know that hope is the best strategy, hopefully we are now at a place where the employees have learned how to at least use 1 or 2 use cases in generative AI. It could be Copilot, it could be ChatGPT, and now they're ready and they feel comfortable in that I can actually learn how to do this. And then from here, they'll begin to learn by themselves. We typically, in the organizations that we work with, we roll this out over a period. It can be 1 month, but it can be from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to a year. And we can do cohorts of 10 to 12 people. And we say, hey, we need to do this by skilled trainers. It can be me, it can be us, or it can be internal training managers in the organization. As you can see, it's actually not that difficult to train this content. It's only 1 or 2 use cases that you have to learn. You can do these cohorts simultaneously, or you can split it up so that they start on Monday, Tuesday. It depends on how many people there is in the organization and how many you want to train. We say that after a couple of cohorts, it can actually be led by employees who participated previously, because it's so easy to learn how to facilitate these trainings. So that is our perspective on how you train employees in generative AI in a new format that is catered to the employees.